Well, there's only 1 month left to complete your census form. We're 6 months in, and only 61% of families in Alabama have filled them out. Our Kelly Kennedy tells us the importance of doing so.
When it comes to filling out the census, Madison County is doing a pretty good job. Nearly 75% of households have responded, but that still means 25% have not, and that can directly impact you.
Over $675 billion in federal funding every year is tied to the census. So those are things like Medicare, education grants, transportation, just about anything that touches our lives in terms of federal government involvement is tied to the census in some way. Even in the state, our transportation funding is tied to census data.
And it's not just federal funding. The census also affects representation for our state.
Alabama, for one, is at risk of losing one of our congressional seats if we do not get an accurate count in the census.
You can fill out the census online at 2020census.org, by phone or by mail. Census takers are currently going door to door, so if you hear a knock, answer it.
Official census takers will not ask any questions about financial information such as bank accounts, credit cards, Social Security, anything like that. Official census takers also won't inquire about immigration status of residents.
Local leaders are encouraging you to ask your family and friends if they filled out the census form.
It sure does not hurt to call or text sons, daughters, grandsons, granddaughters. There's folks out there who just don't know that that's something that we need to do.
It takes about 10 minutes, and only one person per household needs to fill out the form. Putting the Valley first, Kelly Kennedy, WZDX News.